Boom, Monday Night Football, and we're here for the Showdown winners, up to lock with my man Big T in the house, ready with his Falcons colors on. Big T, I don't know if you're going to be throwing the people a curveball with these Falcons colors, but we'll find out in a second. How you feeling here on this Monday night?
Love it. We got our first time in this late slot. I always like the up to lock a little bit. We get in here, inactives are already in, all our stuff. Because usually I'm just sitting at my desk anyways, going up to lock. So it's kind of nice to hop on here and talk some football. Maybe we pick some winners up to the buzzer here. Some first touchdowns, some anytime touchdowns, some props. Roddy says he needs that. What does he say? I need that hat. Big T goes clean with the RPS. Yeah, we can give some hats away tonight. Should we give some hats away? I did a contest last night. I need to find out who won. I seen Tim or someone in the chat said they think they won. I need to go back and look at who was the closest. And then Uncle
I'm always a fan of giving stuff away.
Uncle T retweeted my tweet from last night this morning, and so people were like guessing tonight's game already, like because it was it was set up or something.
Uncle T, you gotta have alert. You can't just start retweeting anything that your nephew sends. You gotta have alerts up or something if you want to retweet.
People were guessing tonight's score. I mean, we can run it back. I can run it again tonight. Do 2 hats last night, 2 hats tonight. We can do that.
I think, Tony, what happens with Uncle T is he probably goes for a long span without looking at Twitter. So whenever he looks at it, he just starts liking all the stuff. Because I've noticed stuff I posted hours later that he'll go in and way later on, and I'm like, oh, okay, whatever, doesn't really matter. So that must be what he does. That must be his move. At some point in the day, he just picks his phone up and starts retweeting all the stuff he's looking at. So all right, we got up to lock here. Obviously, like Tony said, we're gonna try and bring some winners, pick some winners with some touchdown bets, first touchdown bets. You guys know how we roll on this show. Hit the thumbs up if you enjoy the up to lock version of being Big T on the Print Factory on this Monday night. But yeah, Tony, I'm going to try not to get into all the stuff from yesterday because there was just so many games and so many cool things that went on, in terms of what I want to get to with this game. But was there anything before we get to this game that just jumped out and surprised you from yesterday's football games?
No, I mean, nothing too crazy. I'm trying to think if anything totally shocked me. Baltimore losing definitely shocked me, even though I'm not a Baltimore fan. I mean, your Raiders took them down, made you feel good. You're sending
me made me feel so good.
Zamir White, what did Zamir White crush or something? I didn't even know what that tweet meant that you sent me.
So I won't even get to the tweet. Was pretty much Antonio Pierce after the game saying that we want to get him 20 touches every game, and we're working our way to that. We wanted him to get 20 touches in this game. It didn't happen, but we're working towards him getting 20 touches in all these games, going forward. That doesn't mean it'll happen, like he said, but that's the goal, he said, for Zamir White. So, I mean, it's not a secret. Zamir White is their best running back. Madison might be their best passing down back, but he's not the best running back. It was always Zamir White was the best running back. Who did they give running touches to at the end of the game? Zamir White. When they got that field goal, before they got that field goal, Alexander Madison didn't get one touch on that. Some of the biggest touches of the game were just holding on to that football and getting a few yards and burning the clock. That was Zamir White. It wasn't Alexander Madison. So that's all right. I don't need to talk about I did not think you were going to say the Raiders, though. I thought you were going to say the New Orleans Saints because I thought that was the biggest shocker of the entire day, and it wasn't even close. I didn't even think it was as close.
To be honest, you caught me off guard because I wasn't expecting you to talk about yesterday, so you caught me off guard. I wasn't ready for it.
It brings me to what I want to talk about today, which is this game. So the Saints was the biggest. That was the craziest thing by far.
Absolutely. You don't usually catch me off guard with stuff too, but I was not prepared for that question.
Well, see, but this is why these shows are awesome. People can tell these shows aren't scripted at all because you had no fucking idea where I was going with this, because I can tell.
That was the last thing on my mind.
Where I'm going with this is tonight's game. And tonight's game, we have 2 teams, and one team looked good in week 1. They beat a good team. Like they took Green Bay to the wire. They beat Green Bay. We know Green Bay is a good team. Whether you think they're a Super Bowl team or not, that's not what I'm talking about. Green Bay is a good team, though. They have a solid defense, solid offense, solid quarterback, all that stuff, right? They took them to the brink. They won that game. Philadelphia looked good. On the other side, we have week 1 version Atlanta Falcons, who got taken the woodshed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. And I don't mean like the Saints winning 41-10, but I just mean like no one saw the Steelers winning that game and really Kirk Cousins looking that bad and getting dominated. And that's what I wanted to take it to, because I feel like everyone does this every year, Tony, and they overrate week 1 of the NFL season. And you've said it 1,000 times. You really don't know for the first couple weeks. You really don't know. It's a week-to-week league, and things that happened last week, like they're not apt to happen the next week. The Raiders coming in after losing to the Chargers and beating the Ravens in Baltimore, like no one saw that. I didn't even see that coming, and I'm the biggest Raiders fan out there, right? Like, and I didn't see it coming. The Saints, no one saw them beating, I don't care if you're a Saints fan or not, no one saw them beating the Cowboys the way they beat the Cowboys. And I feel like everyone's kind of applying
Lions it to too. I mean, the Lions, everyone's ready to give the Super Bowl to, and they sucked. They sucked
another
for the
team.
Second straight week too, for that matter.
Yeah, that's another team, right, Tony? So and the Cardinals just killed the Rams, who the Lions almost lost to in overtime. And the Cardinals killed the Rams. Like, you called that one, by the way. That was a good call by you.
It was a good week of predict. I mean, it was a good week bets wise. If you were on the Run Pure Bets, there was a lot of good calls on the bet side. I definitely got beat up by the Ravens game, but there was a lot of. Why does Wiley keep saying this is not blue, Wiley? This is black. This is Falcons colors.
Tell me that wasn't one of your Wong teasers.
Yeah, it was the best Wong. It was the best Wong on the whole board.
I didn't know that. When you texted me saying I was rooting so hard for you at the end, I was like, I was so confused. I was like, what is he talking about? And then I didn't know it was in your Wong teaser. Oh, that must have killed you then, because I know you had you had it locked. So, all right, that sucks. But it's taken me to this game. The spread's 5.5. Tony, you got Eagles at home. Right after that trip they made out there last week to Brazil. They come back home. They get the Falcons, who everyone wants to write off. The Falcons were the easy winner in the division. They were the team that was, going to crush this year. They have a ton of talent on offense and defense. And week 1, they come in, they suck. And I'm not sugarcoating anything. They sucked week 1. And, now everyone's like, they're dead. That Kirk Cousins is dead. The team's dead. They might lose. They might come in 3rd in the division now, obviously, because you got the Saints and the Bucks and stuff like that. So now they go from like 1st to 3rd in the division, Tony, after like 2 weeks pretty much. And I'm just not there yet. I'm just not ready to say Atlanta is for sure dead after 1 week. I can't do that. I refuse to do it. These are 2 completely different matchups, going from playing the Steelers to playing the Eagles. Right now it's sitting at 5.5. You've talked about this number a ton, Tony. It's like the biggest trap number. You were on it with the Bengals. Like they should have won, by the way. We don't have to get into that game right now, but they should have won the game.
The Vikings was like tonight's game. The Vikings and the Niners was like tonight's game.
That was another one of your calls. You said it, that line, same thing. The only one that wasn't was the Panthers, and I think there's a reason behind that.
That's what we said on the show, though. We said that the clear matchups up front, and they killed them. It was a great week for predictions. Not to stroke ourselves off, but it was a good week for predictions.
Oh, and my boy Yoshi. Yeah, my boy Yoshi. I forgot about that. So no one was touting Yoshi 3 months ago. 0, except for me. And
I'll still tell that story, though, about Rubio's buddy. We were at week 1 last year, not this year. And somehow Rubio's buddy's like, the Bengals just love this Yoshi guy.
Really?
Like he's going to play over Tyler Boyd.
Have you ever told this story to me? I don't think you told this story to me.
It was week 1 last year, though. We were at the DraftKings party, and this dude is just hawking up freaking – and I'm making fun of him, of course, because I've never even heard of Yoshi. last year, though, week 1. That's what made me realize that once you were talking about it this year, I'm like, yeah, they loved him last year. Now Boyd's gone. Of course they're going to like him this year if they liked him last year.
Listen, Derek, we don't talk about how they got there. We just say they got there, okay? It doesn't matter how you get to
3,800 is there.
Yeah, it don't matter how you get there as long as you get there. That's all that matters. He was a 20th round pick in best ball for a while. He got there. So we're happy about it. But let's get to this game, Tony. So what are we doing first of all from a betting perspective? Because like I said, everyone's on the Eagles. Literally all the bets are coming in. They're all on the Eagles. Everyone wants to bet the Eagles. It's a lock. Atlanta's dust. Saquon's the greatest offensive player in the history of sports after 1 week. What are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, it's a dream spot for me. This is exactly the spots I like where, like you said, if you go before last week, everyone's like Atlanta might win the division. Atlanta's got their sleeper team, this, that. They got the talent. They got rid of the running OC, all this different crap. And then one loss, week 1 of the year, where they lose to a really good defense. And all of a sudden, everybody's like they're dead. They don't even have any injuries. All their dudes are in there. They have a condensed offense. And everyone thinks Philly's like good. Nothing Philly did in that game like crazy impressed me. And I know we're like known as Philly haters too, which I don't get either because I've liked Philly plenty of times. It's just last year they had no defense. So, I mean, we're always going to call it how we see it. I honestly don't hate Philly. I really don't, no matter what people say. But I also don't think they're incredible. And tonight, usually I don't overrate like injuries for receivers, but you lose A.J. Brown too, and you look at these guys they're wheeling out. Jahan Dotson is their number 2. Johnny Wilson is their number 3. I mean, what?
Britton Covey is their number 4.
I just like, you're telling me the Falcons can't compete with this? And sure, could this game go wrong and they get pressure on Kirk Cousins and it go really bad for the Falcons? Sure. But you got to take stands on stuff. And it is such a good Falcons spot. And what they do kind of matches up good with Philly, I think. They're not like, they got pass catchers. They got weapons. They love to play 3 receivers. They got Pitts at tight end. You can put him in the slot a little too. Bijan's going to play a lot more this year. They just match up great. I love this spot tonight. I think they win the game. And I think we get points too, though. I can see both these teams. I know a lot of people are on the under. It is tough because it's early in the year and games do play sloppier, but I think we see points. Another thing, too, with Atlanta side, I know they've had 10 days, but Philly had to go to Brazil play in that situation. Yeah, they did play earlier in the week last week. But still, I mean, in Brazil versus Green Bay, now they come back. Everything checks for Atlanta in this spot. It's one of these games where I just would literally never, ever, ever bet Philadelphia under any circumstance. And it doesn't mean it's some stone cold lock, but it is an incredible Atlanta spot. And if it wasn't for Kirk Cousins, like say they had, I don't know what a good example is. Say they had some sort of mobile quarterback, one of these guys. I hadn't thought about it.
Jordan Love.
Who? Yeah.
Jordan Love.
I mean, Jordan Love. Just like that. If they had anyone besides Kirk Cousins, I think more people would be on Atlanta. Just everyone's kind of writing Cousins off after 1 week. He's still got weapons, and he's still going to make plays. So I absolutely love Atlanta. And I like this game, though, to start breaking into the fantasy talk, because everyone's going to want to play these shitty dudes at the bottom. And I think you can just jam the mid-range, the Moonies, the Goddards, the Pitts, all these guys look underpriced as you go through. Like Mooney, the kickers. I think the kickers are like incredible plays tonight. They're both good kickers. They're both like priced in that mid-range. And I would rather just pepper this mid-range. And even when you get down to like Dotson and Ray, I think like they're going to be, I think Dotson and Ray are going to be the last guy in for a ton of people's teams. So I could see them being like upwards of 30% owned, maybe even more. And that's where I think you can get different. Even though I like Atlanta, you could play like an Eagles defense instead of them. They're going to be way lower owned. you could fall into the perfect situation if the Eagles just get like we always talk about, get some sort of pick to the house or something early. I don't know. I love this slate, and it's not going to be through the cheapies. Everyone's conversation is going to be which cheapie to play. My answer to that is don't play any of the cheapies and just pepper this mid-range and get all good guys. It's easy to do, too. You can even do it with a stud captain and still do it.
Yeah, I'm totally with you on this game. Not always are we going to agree, but today we definitely agree. I'm on the Atlanta side, and I can't believe it, but I didn't know you were going to be in on the mid tier like I was, because we haven't talked about that today, and we're on the same, at least, type of build where it's like I want as many studs as I can jam in the flex. Like I want to, like, my floor is going to be super high, getting those guys in my flex, and then I'm going to find like the mid tier guys to fill in at captain. And that's kind of my route today. So like some of my biggest stands are that I'm not going to have some of these studs in the captain at all, like on my teams. Like that's going to be some of my biggest stands on the slate is I'm going to be fading some of these stud captains that are just going to get all the ownership. I mean, everyone knows AJ Brown's out. That's going to just make people want to jam the Philly guys even more, like the stud guys in the captain stuff and stuff like that. And I'm not going to do that here. So I'm 100% with you. I'm with you on the quarterback situation. If it was anyone other than Kirk Cousins that was decent, people would be on Atlanta here. No doubt in my mind. The Eagles defense too, by the way, I've seen some people like they're better. Yeah, they might be a little better than last year. They still gave up 29 to the Packers. And that's with like Christian Watson messing up 2 different chances to score touchdowns. They kicked a few field goals in that game where they should have had touch. Like this, that could have easily been even more than 29 points. So it's not like this defense is still amazing. Let's just throw that one out there. And I also think they're not even close to the Steelers. The Steelers D is legit. You can think whatever you want about the team. The defense is legit. And Kirk Cousins in that game, he had to throw short. Tony, every quarterback in the NFL, 20-plus yard passes. How many 20-plus yard passes did Kirk Cousins attempt in week 1?
I mean, I'm sure none.
Out of every single quarterback in the NFL, he was the only quarterback to not throw the ball 20-plus yards downfield. He was throwing the ball short the entire game. That's why Darnell Mooney played 95% of the snaps and got like 2 targets or whatever it was, right? That's why Drake London had like all these guys, like you look at it, it's like, why did they have bad games? Like, oh, it wasn't just the Steelers dominated. Kirk Cousins wasn't giving them shots down the field. You know what I mean? The deep routes, he wasn't even throwing there. So this game is going to be different. Jordan Love in game 1, week 1, he threw 5 20-plus yard passes. That was the 4th most of any quarterback in week 1 against this Eagles secondary. Kirk Cousins, they're going to look at that tape and go, man, we can't just throw short all the time. We got to challenge defenses down the field. And that's what you got to do against the Eagles. Even with some of the guys they added, you still got to challenge the secondary. And I think Kirk Cousins is going to make that kind of flip from game 1 to game 2. And I think you're going to see more of him taking some shots. I wouldn't be shocked if play 1 or 2, he took a play action shot deep to Darnell Mooney, just right off the bat, just throw it 40 yards down the field. Like you have to challenge the Eagles. I think he's going to do it. And if they do it, I think they have a really good chance to win the game. So I love it. To the fantasy side though, when I ran my builds earlier this morning without touching anything, it was jamming Jalen Hurts in the captain. I don't know about you, but it was Jalen Hurts in the captain. It was Devonta Smith. Saquon and Bijan were like 3-4 right there. And then it kind of filled out from there. But those were the 4 captains that I noticed were getting a ton of steam. I noticed Ray McLeod was getting a lot of love in the flex. I was getting like 45-50% Ray McLeod in the flex in 150. What do you think of, first of all, the captains up top? What are you doing with those guys?
Yeah, so the good part about games like this, I'm just going to spread it out a decent amount. I mean, like we said, the good part about going like more mid-range, even running it with the Sims and stuff, it's spacing it out pretty good for me. And One of the things that generates more like Jalen Hurts, Bijan captains, which I don't mind. I definitely want my share of those too. But one of the things it'll do is give you those cheap plays. So naturally, by getting rid of the cheap plays or like going really low on them and over projecting some of the studs, it's just going to get rid of those stud captains naturally because you want all mid-tier guys. So I mean, as of right now, I still actually have the most Jalen Hurts and Bijan, but I definitely think I'll be under the field on both, even though I have more than those. So that's why I love this slate, because I still got a good percentage of those teams, but I also spread it around. Like, I don't usually play this many captains as I have tonight. Like, I legitimately have 9 captains I'm playing in my 150 teams. And I don't usually do that. So I'm literally just spacing it between all of those plays we're talking about, like the mid-tier guys, because my stand tonight is just not playing the shitty guys. That's like my stand. I want every team I have, and I do have more rules tonight than I usually do. Like, one of my key rules I'm going to use is, and people might not like this one, but max 1 of Jalen Hurts, Saquon. That kind of gets me a little neutralized there, and I could get screwed. Like last week when Saquon gets some pass game damage, I would have got screwed from this rule, which I don't usually do rules like this. But since I like Atlanta tonight and I like a lot of the Atlanta guys, I just don't want to take up 2 roster spots with the 2 most expensive Philadelphia guys who also vulture each other's touchdowns. So for me, that's a rule I definitely want. Max 1. I don't hate the idea of playing Saquon over Hurts too, which is why I want this rule, because all of my Saquon teams won't have Hurts. So I like that rule. Another one, if I somehow play Kirk Cousins, it's an easy rule, but if you play Kirk Cousins captain, which I won't have much, but a little, I want 2 pass catchers, which that's just a easy rule though. I mean, if you're playing a dude that can't move at all in the pocket, you're going to need pass catchers. Hurts, I want 1 pass catcher with Hurts. So I don't always do that either, but since I'm not playing Saquon with Hurts, I want to do that. Another one I like is to not play more than 2 receivers in a game like this, just per team. I mean, not overall, per team. So I don't want any teams where I have like Mooney, Ray, and pass catchers, not even receivers. I don't know if I said receivers, but I don't want 2 of these Atlanta guys, or I don't want 3 of these Atlanta guys. There's just not enough points. Unless it's a Kirk Cousins captain, then maybe you could, but I still only want 2 because Philly's going to score. I don't have any 5-1s. Trevor Bryan, I would do it, but it's free tonight. And he said, "Can you screen share?" It's a free though, and I already have all my settings and my projections and my ownerships in there, so I can't do the screen share tonight, even though I would like to, just because it's got literally all my stuff in it. But I will do that soon, though. This week, honestly, I want to do a SaberSim video where we show some of this stuff, and it can even be a Q&A type thing, but fortunately, I can't do it tonight.
Yeah, obviously, just because it's a free show, but that's something we can do on a different show. We can definitely screen share stuff like that and show you how to do everything. But all right, I like your takes. If I was going to play one stud at the top, it would be Bijan. I think he would be my favorite captain up top. But I'm going to be honest, like most of my captains are in this like mid-tier range. So I'm going to that's like I said, that's going to be one of my bigger stands. How are you dealing with like Kirk Cousins? Because you said the Jalen Hurts Saquon rule. I noticed that like pretty much unless you bump Kirk Cousins pretty decently from the projections, you're not going to get a ton of him unless you let the Sims kind of take over a little bit, which then maybe it'll give you more Kirk Cousins because it knows the field is going to be under on Kirk Cousins. So it's going to get you honestly over on Kirk Cousins and maybe under on one of Saquon or Hurts. What are you doing with Kirk Cousins from that standpoint, Tony? Are you trying to get way over the field? Are you trying to be at the field? Because I don't know how high he's going to be, but for a quarterback, I think he's going to be a little lower than normal quarterbacks on the slate.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right. He's going to be lower for sure. His projection's just low. You can always tell ownership through projection, and his projection's just low. So honestly, I just bumped him. Uh, I mean, I'm always going to bump quarterbacks, though. That's just even if it
Yeah, you
wasn't
love
Kirk Cousins.
quarterbacks. Yeah,
I'm
you
just
love
gonna
it.
and in the flex more so than captain. Like I'll limit their captain, but like and JBC talked about this a lot. Like it might have wore on me over the last year, but if I end up with like 50% range quarterback flex every single game, I'm just happy with that. I'm never mad if I have quarterbacks in my team. It's just how I build these teams. I don't have an issue ever with quarterbacks. So yeah, I'm gonna end up with about 60% Cousins, which is going to be at least 20%. I mean, he's not going to be more than 40%. So I'm going to be at least 20% above the field on Cousins. And honestly, I like it a lot because my script is going to be that Atlanta plays good and competes to win. If they suck, I'm going to probably lose anyways, and he's probably going to be bad. So it kind of works all together with what I want to do because I don't think there's really an in between. I think he's going to play good and the Falcons are going to play good, or it's just going to totally snowball on them and it's going to be awful. And like my three main teams, I always play three main teams like in the 333 and stuff. I'm probably going to build one team, and this is going to make me sound like a big pussy, but I'm going to probably build one Eagles heavy where I fade the Falcons pretty good. Just only one out of my whole 150 though, so it's a tiny little hedge, and I don't even know if you'd call it a hedge because it's
Big
probably
pussy. I
honestly
like that.
smart.
I like that nickname though. I like that
Yeah,
nickname.
it was a
Yeah,
pretty
it's a
good
good
nickname,
nickname.
but
Yeah.
I think it's a smart way to play Showdown though because all my teams are going to be in good shape if the Falcons play good. So what's wrong with building one? Because if it goes wrong and Philly gets pressure and Kirk Cousins is dusted, I'm fine with having one team that's a snowball effect where I play, and that would probably be like a Saquon captain team where Saquon captain with the D, obviously not Kirk Cousins on this build, and a possession guy coming the other way, like probably Bijan. Like maybe it's a double running back build where Bijan gets a lot of that volume and stuff as my only Falcons guy type thing.
Yeah, makes sense. I'm always like when you build these showdown lineups, you are essentially building out scripts. You know what I mean? And when you're building like main teams, you should have, even if you have a feel way the game's going to go. Yeah, that should be the majority of your teams, but that doesn't mean you don't like can't build one or two teams to go against your feel in case you are wrong. Because listen, we're not always right, right? Like it's just it'd be nice to always be right, but we're definitely not always right. So, most of the people out here, we get stuff wrong all the time. So most of the people listening, I'm sure, get stuff wrong all the time. There's no shame in that, but so build accordingly that way, unless you just, are one of those guys that just doesn't care and likes to take the risk and shove in, which is, a lot of times the way I do it. I just don't give a fuck. I just kind of shove sometimes. But the way Tony's talking about it is definitely the right way to build. When you've got, money in play like that. So, all right, that's the top tier of captains, Tony. Let's move down to like this mid tier because I think you kind of said it. Like this is where you want to live. This is where I want to live too. You got Drake London, you've got Kyle Pitts in this range, Dallas Goddard, Darnell Mooney. And I'll just start off here, but like I love this range. This is where the bulk of my captain ownership is going to be. First off, I really think Dallas Goddard is like a safe captain play. I feel like he's got a really nice floor. I feel like he's really cheap. I think he's going to get a bunch of targets here with no AJ Brown. He got like 5 targets in the last game. And if you notice, most of the targets were in the first half. In the second half, he really wasn't that involved. But with a team like Philly, when you have so many guys like this, it's kind of hard for a Dallas Goddard to be super involved throughout a whole game unless a stud is out. And we have AJ Brown out. So this is like a game where I feel like Jalen Hurts could look more to Dallas Goddard. Atlanta plays, I think, like the 4th most zone of any team in the NFL in week 1. I think they played like 83% zone coverage. So Dallas Goddard could be just that safe, find a spot, sit in it, check down, type guy where he gets 8 targets in this game, maybe more. and has a decent game here. So I like his price tag a lot. Like I said, I think he's more the safe one. The guys with a little more upside for me are Darnell Mooney and Kyle Pitts. I think these guys have a ton of upside. Tony talked about, I think Kyle Pitts running in the slot a little bit. So out of all of his routes run, I think it was like 55 or 59% of them were out of the slot, which is nice. Darnell Mooney, like I said, they didn't take a lot of deep shots. He runs a lot of deep routes. So last week, I don't think you can take much out of that. He was on the field for almost every snap. I think it was 95% of the snaps he was on the field for. So he's playing almost every snap. And like I said, I think in this game, they're going to correct that mistake of not taking shots down the field to keep defenses somewhat honest. They have to do that here. And I think that's going to be with someone like Darnell Mooney, who I love here. I like his anytime touchdown prop. I like his first touchdown prop at 22-1 on DraftKings Sportsbook, #DK partner. So yeah, and he's 5,400, perfect mid-tier guy for me. So I got Goddard, Mooney, and then like I said, Pitts, who, Kirk Cousins loves the tight end. He's going to look to the slot guys running out of the slot, because that's where you hurt Philly. It was where you hurt Philly last year. Jaden Reed week 1 hurt him in week 1, and Jaden Reed ran like 80-something% of his routes out of the slot. So, this is where you want them. Darnell Mooney lines up in the slot, 33% of his routes. Kyle Pitts runs routes out of the slot, like 50% of his routes, and Ray McLeod runs, about 50% of his routes out of the slot. So like that's where you're going to want to look, I think. Drake London's the guy that I'll play in the flex. I don't think I'm going to play him in the captain. But I don't think he's a terrible play in the captain. I'm just going Pitts and Mooney. I don't want to have too many guys from Atlanta in the in the captain spot, because I don't think they can all get there. But I do think he's a good flex play for a little bounce back. Maybe not a super upside game, but he is cheap. I do think, I don't know, Tony, if there was one Atlanta guy people would gravitate to in the captain, do you think it's Drake London? I feel like it would be, right?
Yeah, the studs for sure. Just the way the pricing lines up, London and Bijan for sure. Probably Pitts a little bit too, but yeah.
So to this question, Trevor Bryant, if you play a captain in this mid tier, you're going to have a bunch of spots where you can jam the top tier. Do I think it requires Goddard? No, because Hurts. No, because if this game goes the opposite of points and it goes under, and maybe it's a kicker's game, like Tony said, but Dallas Goedert gets 8 receptions for 80-something yards and maybe the lone touchdown, and somehow Saquon Barkley outscores Saquon and Bijan outscore Kirk Cousins and Jalen Hurts. Like, that could happen. That's not crazy. So to your point, if you're making one team or 3 teams, maybe you should play Hurts on that team. But if you're making more than that, I would make some teams where there's no quarterbacks, because I think there's an outcome where Bijan and Saquon make it on the optimal over a Jalen Hurts and or a Kirk Cousins. And then, like Tony said, you get the kickers in there. Maybe it's a double kicker night, right, Tony? You get the double kicker in there, and then one volume receiver, a Devontae Smith, a Drake London, a Kyle Pitts, and boom, that's your optimal. I don't know. That probably leaves a lot of money on the table, but I'm just saying, like, that could be a team right there. You got one more spot left. So yeah, I think, Hurts is definitely someone you want, but I wouldn't make rules like that, is more my point. Tony, what about you in this mid tier?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little redundant just because I just like all these guys. I wish like I like some of them more than the other, but just looking at the range, this is just where I want to live. Goddard, I agree with you. I don't think he has a ton of upside, but he does exactly what I need tonight. Like, I think he gets like 12 points tonight, which is just solid in there, which I don't want a ton of the captain, but I'll even tell you what I got. I got 8% captain, which I'm fine with. That's 12 teams out of 150. He's definitely not one of my favorite captains, but I do think he's one of the safest, where if he gets a touchdown, he's got a decent chance. If he doesn't get a touchdown, he's probably only going to get like 10 points or something. But if he somehow binks the double touchdown, which he's been a winner in the showdowns before when we've done these shows, that's just why I want to spread out on these guys. And I do think, for example, I think like London and Devontae are going to be just so easy to click tonight that they're going to be overplayed a little bit, which is why I'm lower on them. Which, are they the best two number ones? Obviously. But I have less than them in the captain than Goddard, just because I just don't think they don't get you different enough. Like, I think so many people are clicking them in the captain, which I think Devontae could end up like 20% captain.
Devontae is going to be crazy owned because AJ Brown's out and everyone just wants to jam Devontae. And
every freaking time. And I've said this on these shows for 10 years now. Just because AJ's out, I don't think it ever impacts Devontae. I think it almost negatively hurts him. And I know a lot of people don't agree with this. So it's more of just my opinion. And you kind of agree too, from what it sounds like. But for Devontae's case, I would seriously rather AJ be in there. Because for one, it steals ownership. And for two, the defense has to focus. And sure, sometimes you guess wrong when there's two and AJ crushes, which happened last week. AJ crushed, Devontae didn't. But other games, Devontae crushes and AJ doesn't. But now tonight, there's no one else in that price range because you lose a stud.
They're not respecting any of those other receivers.
Yeah, Atlanta, so they're going to double his ass.
Yes.
And don't get me wrong.
It makes it harder on Saquon. Because now you had two threats out at receiver. Now you got to really worry. So it opens up for Saquon. If you play the too high, it's an easy just run call every time, right? It makes it for defenses so much easier to game plan for a team like Philly when they lose one of those three guys, but especially AJ Brown, in my opinion, because he's the big X factor that I think everybody game plans for. And he's the number one guy, especially him or Devontae. So it has to negatively hurt Devontae. Even if his target share goes up a little, I still think it hurts him.
And I still think he plays like solid in the flex spot. And I'm just under on him. I mean, it's just one of those things that, I mean, again, let me look. I have 27% in the flex and so I'm still at like 35% Devontae. So I'm not that far under. It's just one of the things I think I've gotten better with using SaberSim is even if I don't love a guy, just going a little lower on him, still keeping him in some builds because I still like in builds where you think Atlanta wins the game outright and say you think Atlanta scores like 27 tonight and wins. I think that's a great Devontae script because Philly's going to have to chuck it and stuff. If you think Philly wins and wins easy tonight, I think Devontae's an even worse play. Like, say I thought Philly, which I don't think Philly's going to win, but if I did, I would like Saquon, I think, is my favorite captain. And I don't even like Saquon. So it shows progress from me where I'm not just stubborn. I'm not just stuck on some stuff. Like, I just think Saquon's a decent play. But again, that's why I put in that rule, Saquon or Hurts, because I'm trying to really get in those lanes where I have upside. And I don't know. This is a very interesting slate, though. And so many people are going to play cheap guys. Like we keep seeing in the chat. And like Chris McDonald in there saying Falcons played a ton of man against Fields. Totally different animal. Like it's just so like Fields can't throw. Their offense isn't really built like Phillies where, I mean, on paper, sure, like Fields and Jalen are similar, but the way the offense is attacking, I mean, Pittsburgh's never going to go down the field. Philly likes to go down the field. I don't think they really get covered the same way, but I do think they're like the chat's saying, they're going to put Terrell on Devontae and they're going to roll coverage, I think, a little bit. So
it's not true anyways. Atlanta played the lowest amount of man defense in week 1 of any team. Lowest. 10% is the lowest amount. So
I don't see
not
why
even
they're
sure.
not just going to roll everything towards Devontae anyway.
That still
I
doesn't
mean,
mean they can't, like you said, roll. And they're not going to play like two high safeties, though, Tony. They're not going to respect like any of.
why would you not try to lock him up and make freaking these other bums beat you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. Like I'm with you 100%. Even if it's not Terrell, I mean, you could literally just roll coverage over and then put Terrell on like whoever you think is the second best. If you just want to go almost like that, but yeah, I mean, they're going to play a bunch of zone, but that still doesn't mean they're not going to focus more on Smith. And with AJ Brown out, it just makes it easier to do so. And I think it also makes it easier to slow down the run game, which is kind of my point with Saquon. Is like it's a lot tougher to have to run when you've got, more loaded boxes and stuff like that. And I think with AJ Brown out, it makes it easier to do things like that if you want to, and take some chances. But we'll see with that. Let's get down to the cheaper range, Tony, because we kind of already talked about the kickers. I think we're both on board with kickers here. It sounds like you like the defenses a little bit more than me. I kind of like Atlanta's defense at the price tag a little bit more. I don't think many people are playing them at all. Their projection is super low. I think they're actually the interesting defense. They've got good players on defense too. This isn't like a terrible defense. So I don't mind them. You got Ray McLeod, who's going to be, I think, one of the more popular guys down here. Jahan Dotson at 4K. Kenny Gainwell. Like, out of all these guys, Tony, Will Shipley, Calcaterra, Covey, is that Johnny Wilson? Is there anyone that you're like really wanting to jam?
So the big talking point for me in that bottom range, like I said, I think a lot of people want to finish their teams with Ray McLeod and Jahan Dotson. So that's one of the reasons I think the Eagles D and the Falcons D are just great plays, because they're in that same price range and they're going to be significantly less owned. And I think they both have upside. I really do. Kirk Cousins can give the ball the other way. Hurts can give the ball the other way. We've seen tons of mistakes from these guys. I just think, like, I really like the D's tonight. And that, I just think there's going to be opportunity. And like you said, the Falcons are going to be 7% owned, I bet. The Eagles aren't going to be much higher. I mean, the Eagles will be higher. I'm not saying they won't, but they're not going to be like 30% or something. They're going to be 15% or something. So, and like I said, I think Dotson and Ray are where people finish. I think they're going to be in the 30s. So you kind of, it's a weird leverage spot, but playing those D's over those receivers is weird for sure, especially if you like playing, you're playing an offensive game. But like we always say in Showdown, weird stuff like this is what really gets you going.
Yep, that's one way to go, is the receivers that people want to get in there. Obviously, people want more offense than defense too, right, Tony? So no one wants to play a defense over an offensive skill player. So it makes sense. I mean, I think the guy I'm a little over on is Jahan Dotson, just because I think he's the only other receiver I could see that has like possible upside from Philly outside of Devonta Smith, Tony. I don't know about you. Maybe it's Johnny Wilson. I just don't know if Johnny Wilson's there yet. He's coming in with a little injury, he had a hamstring injury. He's good to go. But I don't know, like outside of packages where he comes in at like the red zone, Tony, in the goal line, if he's going to be someone that they're going to be able to use like outside of that. Like, I think they could throw a fade route to him or something with no AJ, but I think they could give him a chance like at the end zone. That's why I liked, it was earlier this morning. I liked him. I don't know if it's moved, but he was 36-1 first touchdown bet. I thought was interesting. Just like kind of like throwing the ball up to him a little bit. He's 6'6", but I don't really love him for like DFS. I definitely want to take more shots on like Jahan Dotson, in that scenario. I like what you said about the defenses over like Ray, Kenny Gainwell, Will Shipley, Calcaterra. Like, these are the guys I'm not getting to as much, if any, that I don't really want to play. I think Kenny Gainwell would be the best. Tyler Algier, I'm not getting to. He wasn't really that involved at all. Maybe they get him more involved. But I don't see it here. And then outside of that, like any $200 guys, Tony, you see that I'm
I'm just
missing?
not playing cheapies. I know I keep
Yeah.
saying the same stuff, and we're probably
Yeah.
boring, but I'm just not. I just see the chat going. The stuff I never overdo is like we got our boy Mitchell Snyder in there. Like everyone starts jerking off, like, oh, the beat writer said Smith's in the slot, Covey, and these guys are out wide. Like I don't give a shit. Like I'm playing the good guys. Yeah, he's in the slot. They're still gonna roll. Just because the guy goes to the slot doesn't mean they're just gonna nuke. You still have ownership. You still have all the garbage. I mean, they're putting the bums outside. Like I just don't. Never over. I mean,
I don't overvalue that either. So I'm with you too. I get it.
Orlando Roshan, I was all over Ruby. You weren't on the thing yesterday. I hopped on with these guys, and this donkey Rubio just kept stroking off Roshan. I'm like, Rubio, the dude isn't even projected. He's not going to be on the field. Like, you can't play guys that aren't projected.
Hey, he got punched in the face, though, Tony.
That was the funniest part. So in the second half, he gets punched in the freaking helmet, not in the face, in the helmet. The dude, the only time I saw him all night, he was getting punched in the friggin' helmet.
How the hell do you play Roshan on that slate? He didn't even see the field.
I was all over this freaking guy. He just kept. I'm like, dude, there's value everywhere. Why the hell are we playing? And it's the same thing tonight. If you beat me with freaking Britton Covey and Johnny Wilson, like beat me with them. That's fine. I'm going to beat you with kickers and defenses and Darnell Mooney. You can play Britton Covey outside and try to beat me with it. That's fine. If Britton Covey scores 14 points, that's fine.
Yeah, you're not playing the backup running backs either, are you? Are you playing any backup running backs?
I'm not playing
like Gainwell, Algier.
I have Gainwell just because in some of my Philly builds, where it really goes Philly's way, I want some Gainwell in those builds. But I literally have 5%, so it's not like I got a ton. But he's my. And I have 2% Johnny Wilson. So I take that back. I don't have 0% Johnny Wilson. I have 3 builds out of 150. I have Johnny Wilson. But I'm assuming those are Philly heavy builds too. I'm sure without looking.
Yeah. I got like 1 and 6% of those guys. So yeah, it's the same thing. But all right. That's the whole slate right there. We got about, what is it? Like 8 minutes until game time. We could take some questions, Tony. I don't know if you want to give out a favorite bet or something like that. Do you have any
we gotta
top bets?
Let's look at the bets. If anyone has questions, we can answer them, and we can find some winners. So I'll give my bet. I always like finding long shots for these touchdown bets just because they're fun. And I think Atlanta opens it up more tonight. But if they play like last week, I mean, Ray freaking got a ton of plays and a ton of dump offs. I think he got more targets than I don't have the sheet up on my screen anymore.
Yeah, he did. He's 7.
So similar to Lazard last week when we hit it. I mean, 35-1 first touchdown for a dude that's going to be on the field a decent amount. I'm taking a shot with Ray tonight at 35-1 and 5-1 anytime. But let's look at.
He was 40 this morning. I gave it out in the Discord this morning at 40.
You moved the line on me. That's
40, baby. That's where we got it at this morning. My favorite's Darnell Mooney. That's 25-1 right now on DraftKings Sportsbook, which I think is nice.
I like that. So you got a couple things in the chat while you're looking too. Double tight end, double running back. These are the builds I love tonight. These are the builds I can get behind because you got just so much floor, so much upside. Like if you told me I could, even if I played, I doubt I have this build, but if you told me I had 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, and 2 kickers, even I don't even know if that lines up, how it would line up. But your floor there is I like that build. I would not be shocked if that build did good tonight. So I love the double tight end. Favorite captain. I like the studs still in those because you can still get them easy. If I was playing
which one? Do you like Bijan, Jalen Hurts?
Bijan just because I like Atlanta.
Yeah.
But if I like Philly, Hurts or Saquon would be my answer. I wouldn't go Devontae in that, but if I only had one team, it would for sure be one of those guys. Just because of how easy it is to still build a great team.
Yep. Rick Majerus does not want you to slander his boy Covey. He played 9 years at my high school. All right. People like the Wilson first TD bet. What about Algier? Landa says, I just they gave so much work to Bijan. Maybe the work comes down for Bijan and goes up for Algier. I think Bijan's just a workhorse. And
do you have this prop boost on DraftKings hashtag DK partner where it's Saquon and Bijan 130 plus rushing yards at plus 100?
Yes, I do.
That is a tasty boost. If anyone's out there, that's a tasty boost. It should be minus 200's the true line. I'm sure JSU can bet like 500 on it because somehow his boost amounts. I can only put $40 on it, but I'm putting $40 on it, baby.
You know, DK sly with these things, okay? DK, they're sly with these profit boosts over here. I swear to God, DJ Moore should have had like 2 bomb touchdowns to Caleb yesterday and just did not because Caleb sucks.
Don't even talk to me about the Bears. The Bears are so, God,
I'm disgusted that you like Caleb Williams. He is terrible. And I don't want to hear about his offensive line. I literally don't want to hear about it. He is so bad.
His line was horrific. His coaching was horrific. He was horrific.
That guard, Nate Davis, literally should have been cut like midway through the second quarter.
He literally can't read any sort of rush whatsoever.
Dude, he's the one that like taps the center or like does the thing for the center to snap the ball, and he was still flinching. He was still moving false start. I was like, what the fuck is going on right now? You're like telling him when to snap the ball. How are you doing that? Oh, God. And then the one run with I don't know if you saw this run with DeAndre Swift when 2 or 3 offensive linemen got to the second level, and Swift should have had like a 20-yard run. And he just didn't touch anyone, Tony. Nate Davis just stood there and didn't touch any defender. I was like, what are you doing?
Dude, his freaking numbers are like embarrassing. Like he's actually had decent blocking, like whatever the advanced numbers show. He's had like decent blocking and done less with it than anybody. And I fall for his ass every single year, and he always sucks. He's just not any good.
Yeah, he's terrible. Thank you, DraftKings. Let me put $250 down on that bet. Appreciate it. That was just for Tony.
I knew you were going to be able to freaking bet that.
Yeah. It still hasn't moved. Yeah, for whatever reason. What made Caleb great in college was pulling it and running. Yeah. On top of this, you can't do this shit in the NFL because everyone's bigger, stronger, faster. So all that stuff, like that play where he rolled out and then tried to throw the ball, and there was 3 defenders, and he had to throw the ball to the outside, and he underthrew it, and it got picked on the right sideline. Like that play he makes in college every single time, and it probably doesn't get picked for whatever reason. Like in the NFL, that's getting picked 100 out of 100 times. Like you underthrow it, it gets picked. That's how it works. Like these guys are too good. Caleb Williams you can't get away with that stuff in the pros like you did in college. Let's see. Oh, Benair. Shout out to Benair. Daniel Jones won someone a Millie Maker, and he also lost to the Washington Redskins last night. Let's go.
That That's the craziest stat I've ever seen in my life for Benair. They scored 3 touchdowns, gave up 0 touchdowns, and lost.
I mean, how the hell did Jaden Daniels not get in the end zone once? Like that was embarrassing. The Giants are embarrassing. That whole game was embarrassing. I don't even want to talk about that.
Malik Neighbors wasn't embarrassing.
Oh, God, how did he drop that pass at the end, though? He was so good. Oh,
he's probably tired. He got 38 targets. He was probably worn out by then.
That's true. That's true. He was definitely worn out.
Kenny Dimes didn't even look at anyone else. He was just
he did not. Yeah, it was all Malik Neighbors all day. He knew if he doesn't give Malik Neighbors the ball, he's going to be out of that job in like 2 weeks if he doesn't get that dude the ball. So, all right. Anything else here, Tony, before we get – I bet Mooney's prop for his yards. I like his yards over. I think You could alt line it too. I think you could catch 1 or 2 bombs. Is there any other lines you see, Tony, before we get out of here on DraftKings?
So I definitely always like these field goal props in these games like this because it's always 1.5. So
Yep.
I think both have a great chance at that. So both kickers over 1.5. I like Ray over 28.5. I like Jalen Hurts 1 touchdown. I think he's an anytime touchdown, and Bijan. So nothing too exciting outside. Those are the ones that I think are good bets, not good lines or anything. But
all right, I like it.
Through this list. Yeah, I don't know. I think we see a good game tonight, though. I think it's going to be a fun one.
Can we get Jahan Dotson to explode one time for the best ball bros?
I don't want him to tonight because I'm not playing him that much.
I played you a little, Jahan. You could come explode on my team, buddy. Because
I have to be I got 14%, so I'm probably half the field.
Yeah, baby. Manning cast. Get to the Mooney captain. Mooney captain's definitely my favorite tournament captain by far. Like that's definitely my favorite.
One thing about the Manning cast that's disappointed me, and I watched the Peyton Manning Belichick show today too, like the breakdown show. Yep. Belichick's kind of sucked so far. Like he wasn't very good with them last week. He wasn't like joking that good, and he's awkward a little bit. I thought he'd be better than he is.
They might just not mix very well together.
I think that might be what it is. And like when they needle each other, it's like more awkward than it should be. I mean,
it's like Nick Saban. So like the opposite for like Nick Saban and what's his name on the college show.
Yeah, it's awesome. And McAfee.
It's awesome. The opposite. It's the opposite because they're totally different, but they like blend well together. Yeah. It's awesome. So, all right, we got to get to this football game here.
Everyone says Cousins sucks in primetime too. Did they not remember him going for like 900 yards on me last year when they played the Niners? This dude destroyed the Niners.
Didn't they win that game? Yeah, they won that game.
They destroyed the Niners. If they didn't win, they played them great. I think they won, though. I think they destroyed them.
All right, well, Kurt, you can do that tonight, baby. Destroy this Eagles team for us and hopefully run pure and win this game. For Big T and myself, JSU, good luck in all your Showdown contests and bets, and we'll see you guys Thursday. Till then, we're out. Peace.